The marble floor still glistened when the security guard shoved her. Her palms slapped the polished tile, echoing sharply across the lobby of the St. Aurelius Hotel. One of the most luxurious, impossible to enter, millionaires-only buildings in the city. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, dripping gold and refracting light like diamonds breaking apart. Tourists gasped. Wealthy guests paused mid-conversation. A violinist in the corner even stopped playing. And there she was, a homeless black woman on her knees. Her coat was torn, her braids loosely tied back, her backpack ragged and patched. People stared at her like she had stained their perfect world by simply breathing in it. "Ma'am," the guard barked, loud enough for the lobby to hear, "I told you, this entrance is for registered guests or paying customers. You can't be here." The woman lifted her chin slowly, dignity still intact despite the humiliation. "I'm not asking for a room," she said softly. "Only for a moment. Someone inside." "We're not a shelter," the guard snapped. "Out." A group of wealthy patrons nearby watched with amused disgust, especially one man standing among them. Tall, perfectly tailored navy suit, polished shoes, a $200,000 watch catching the light. He was smiling in that lazy, cruel way only the extremely wealthy seemed to master. This was Victor Langston III, billionaire, hotel owner, technology investor, public darling, private snake. He had been mid-conversation with foreign partners when the commotion interrupted him. Irritation flickered across his face like a glitch, then sharpened into arrogance as he assessed the situation. "A homeless woman?" he scoffed loudly. "In my hotel?" Gasps, whispers, wide eyes. The woman stayed kneeling, not by choice, but because the guard's shove still burned through her palms. Victor stepped closer, voice dripping with casual cruelty. "What are you doing here? Trying to warm up in the lobby? Trying to hustle my guests?" A couple behind him snickered. She swallowed but did not bow her head. "I told him, I am only here to speak to someone." Victor spread his arms theatrically. "To who? Beyoncé? The United Nations? God himself?" Laughter cracked through the lobby. Her jaw tightened, not from anger, from restraint. Victor's eyes narrowed. "Listen, sweetheart. This is a 5-star hotel. People like you don't—" He stopped mid-sentence because a soft voice behind him whispered, "Mon Dieu." The French businessman beside him stared at the homeless woman, blinking rapidly. "Did you hear her accent just now? When she spoke, I thought—" Victor waved him off. "Accents don't make you less homeless." The guard reached for her arm. Victor didn't stop him. No one did. Except for the woman herself, who pulled back gently, rising to her feet with a grace that contradicted every assumption pinned on her like a target. Her eyes scanned the room, searching, not for a handout, not for pity, not for warmth, for someone specific. "Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room knowing the world would decide your worth before you said a single word? Have you ever felt the weight of eyes judging your clothes, your hair, your skin, your very presence, before they even knew your name? Because that's what this lobby was. A hierarchy made visible. The guests sipping champagne? Worthy? It's the entrepreneurs shaking hands. Valuable. The billionaire in the suit? Untouchable. The homeless woman in worn clothes? Invisible. The violinist resumed playing as if to drown out the discomfort. A concierge whispered, "Should we call the police?" A woman in a fur coat whispered, "I feel unsafe." Unsafe, because of a woman who hadn't raised her voice once. Victor stepped closer, lips curling. You can either walk out on your own, or we will escort you out. She looked him in the eyes. Calm. Steady. No fear. You didn't even ask my name, she said quietly. And why would I? He snapped. Because, she replied evenly, you should know who walks into your hotel. More murmurs. Victor rolled his eyes. Fine, humor me. What's your name? She opened her mouth. But before she could answer, another man intervened. A guest speaking rapid-fire Japanese approached the concierge, panicked, trying to explain that he left his passport in a taxi. The concierge looked helpless. She didn't understand a word he was saying. Victor sighed loudly. Someone get a translator. We don't have time. But the woman turned toward the distressed guest, and she spoke. Fluent, effortless, precise. どうちついてください。ここに作って何が起きたのか教えてください。あなたの優先度を確認します。Please calm down. Sit here and tell me what happened. We will confirm your travel schedule. The lobby froze. The Japanese man blinked. あなたは日本語を話せますか? You speak Japanese? She nodded gently. Hi, Liu Chang desu. Yes, fluently. Mouths fell open across the room. Victor scoffed, annoyed but unsettled. Before he could speak again, an Italian couple approached, flustered, arguing with the staff because their reservation had been mixed with another family's booking. The staff didn't understand them. But the homeless woman turned again. Per favore, datemi I documenti. Vediamo subito cosa è andato storto. Please give me your documents. Let's see what went wrong. The Italian couple gasped. Parla italiano? She nodded, adjusting her posture. Sì, perfettamente. People stared. Silence rippled outward, broken only by the faint trembling of Victor's jaw. A Spanish businessman in the crowd muttered, No puedes, sir. It can't be. The French investor beside Victor whispered, Victor, that's not normal. That's not coincidence. Victor forced a laugh. Being bilingual doesn't make you. She spoke Japanese and Italian. The Frenchman cut in. Perfectly. Victor's eyes tightened, irritation flaring into something sharper. He hated when attention shifted away from him. He especially hated when someone he deemed low value did anything impressive. The woman finished helping the Japanese guest, then the Italian couple, her movements precise, gentle, confident, like someone expertly trained for global crisis management. The guard who shoved her earlier watched her with growing confusion. Victor crossed his arms. So what? She watched a lot of foreign movies, but the shift in the room was undeniable. Whispers spread. Speculations swirled. People who had scorned her minutes earlier leaned closer, studying her face, her posture, her diction. And suddenly, she didn't look like a homeless woman. She looked like someone displaced, someone important, someone with a story none of them had dared imagine. Victor stepped in front of her again, gripping onto the last thread of control. Fine, he snapped. You speak some languages. Good for you. But you're still trespassing. And unless you can explain why you're here... He stopped. Because someone stepped into the lobby. A man whose presence snapped the air like electricity. A man whose very entrance made Victor's face drain of color. The CEO of Aurelius International. The billionaire above the billionaires. Adrian Pierce. He walked in calmly, eyes surveying the scene, the guard, the crowd, the tension. Then his gaze landed on the woman, and he froze. Not with confusion, with recognition, but not yet the kind of the room expected. For a long moment, no one moved. The lobby seemed to hold its breath as Adrian Pierce strode across the marble floor, his footsteps soft but impossibly loud, in the suspended silence. His suit was charcoal, perfectly cut, his tie an understated navy, his hair streaked with silver at the temples. He carried the kind of aura that made bellboys straighten their jackets and managers wipe invisible dust off counters. But his eyes weren't on them. They were on her, on the woman in the torn coat, standing tall despite the humiliation still clinging to her like smoke. Adrian stopped a few feet away. Victor rushed forward, plastering on a tight smile. "Adrian, I'm so glad you're here. We've had a minor situation with—" "Be quiet," Adrian said without looking at him. Victor's mouth snapped shut. You could feel the power shift. Tiny but unmistakable. Adrian studied the woman's face, the angle of her jaw, the line of her mouth, the way her eyes met his without flinching. Something like shock flickered across his features, quickly smothered beneath control. "Where did you learn Japanese?" Adrian asked her, his voice low, steady. She held his gaze. "Tokyo University, exchange program, and later 3 years with a Tokyo-based NGO. Murmurs rippled. His eyes narrowed. "Italian?" "Florence, linguistics fellowship. And Spanish?" "Madrid, then Bogota, interpreting contract work." The crowd bristled in disbelief. Victor forced a laugh. "She's clearly lying. Sir, she wandered in off the street. She's been causing a disturbance and—" "I said be quiet," Adrian repeated sharper. Victor shut up again, cheeks flushing with rage and embarrassment. Adrian took a small step closer to the woman. "And French?" he asked in perfect fluid French. "Vous le parlez depuis quand?" "You've spoken it since when?" She replied without missing a beat, in a softer Parisian accent than his own. "Depuis l'enfance. On m'a élevé entre deux pays et trop de frontières. Since childhood. I was raised between 2 countries and too many borders." The French investor beside Victor inhaled sharply. "That accent," he whispered. "She's not improvising. This is lived." Victor looked between them, confused and irritated. He hated not understanding. Adrian switched to Spanish. "Y el español no es de libro, es calle." "And your Spanish?" "It's not from a book. It's street." She gave a small, wry smile. "Bogotá te cambia el oído." "Bogotá changes your ear." Laughter rippled faintly from the Spanish speakers. Then she added quietly, in English, "And English. Well, that one I didn't have to travel for." Adrian's eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. The room leaned in. "Naomi," she said finally. "Naomi Reyes." Victor rolled his eyes. "Sir, if you'd like, I can have security escort." Adrian cut him off without looking away from Naomi. "How long have you been homeless?" The question hung in the air, heavy and wrong. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest, and no one else had dared to ask it without venom. Naomi glanced down at her worn boots, then back up. "A little over a year," she said. "I prefer between homes. Sounds less permanent." A sad little smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "And before that?" Adrian asked. She tilted her head slightly, studying him now, trying to decide how much of herself to show this man in the tailored suit. "Before that," she said, "I worked." "Doing what?" Naomi swallowed. "Translation, interpretation, diplomacy support, field logistics, the glamorous life of making other people sound smart in languages they don't speak." Someone behind Victor frowned. "That's high-level work." Victor scoffed. If that were true, she wouldn't be standing here in that coat. Naomi turned to him slowly. "Do you think poverty is a personality trait?" she asked softly. "Or do you think maybe life happens?" He bristled. If you were really that valuable, someone would have kept you. Those words hit harder than he knew. A flicker of pain crossed her face. Quick, almost invisible. Adrian saw it. And that was the moment something clicked in his eyes. He suddenly seemed to recognize more than just her languages. He seemed to recognize her. "Naomi," he said slowly, "did you ever work with the International Displacement Commission?" Her eyebrows rose. "You know the IDC?" "I fund half their operations," he replied. "Did you?" She hesitated. "Yes," she said at last, before things fell apart. His gaze sharpened. "Did you once lead a mediation team for the border crisis talks in Almeria?" The room shifted. A chill crawled up Naomi's spine. "Yes," she whispered. "How do you know that?" Adrian exhaled, the sound long and quiet. "Because," he said, "we tried to recruit you." The entire lobby froze. Victor blinked. "Recruit her? For what?" Adrian ignored him. "Our liaison told us," he continued, "that there was a young black woman on the ground, a linguist who rewrote the strategy for how we handled live interpretation under threat. They said she spoke like air, fluid, invisible, essential. They said without her, those talks would have collapsed." Naomi's throat tightened. "They called you," Adrian went on, "the five-tongued ghost." A faint, awkward laugh slipped from Naomi's lips. "That was a stupid nickname," she murmured. The Frenchman beside Victor whispered, "I read that report. They never named her. Confidentiality. But they said her notes changed policy." Victor stared, then scoffed. "We're really going to pretend this homeless woman is some secret prodigy? Come on, this is getting ridiculous." "Ridiculous," Adrian said slowly, "is you humiliating guests on my property because you can't see past your own reflection." Victor flinched. Naomi's eyes flicked between them. "Why are you here, Naomi?" Adrian asked. "Really?" Her fingers tightened around the strap of her backpack. For the first time, she looked unsure. Not because she didn't know her reason, because she wasn't sure she'd be allowed to say it. "I came to see you," she said quietly. A bomb went off in the room's collective chest. Adrian's eyes widened. "Me?" She nodded. "I heard," she began, then stopped. "I heard that you were hosting some foreign investors here. That you were closing a deal with a consortium of energy companies from Europe, Latin America, and East Asia." The Italian couple looked at each other. The Japanese man blinked. The Spanish businessman stiffened. Victor bristled. "Who told you that? Did you overhear something? Are you spying?" "Everyone in this city knows," she cut in. "Your PR team practically shouted it from the rooftops. Historic global deal sealed at the St. Aurelius. It's on the front page of 3 business magazines." Victor shut his mouth, jaw clenched. Naomi took a breath. "I came," she said, voice low, "because I know who's sitting at your table upstairs. I know the languages they speak. I know the contracts they prefer. I know the loopholes in their favorite clauses. And I know the interpreter you hired for today." She hesitated, is not ready for what they're about to do. Whispers exploded around her. Adrian's brow furrowed. "Explain." Naomi glanced around at the listening ears and lowered her voice. "Your team thinks this deal is about energy infrastructure," she murmured. "It isn't. It's about data, control, long-term land rights hidden in sub-clauses." The Spanish businessman in the lobby went pale. "How do you?" Adrian began. "Because I worked under one of them," she said. "The Spanish delegate, years ago. He likes to bury ownership transfer language inside environmental regulation paragraphs, then pretend it was a translation ambiguity. Her eyes hardened. He uses people like me to make it sound innocent. Adrian stared at her, the puzzle assembling itself behind his eyes. You came to warn me, he said slowly. Naomi shrugged, a sad little motion. I came, she said, because I couldn't live with myself watching someone else get crushed by what I helped design. Victor laughed sharply. This is insane. She's manipulating you. She wants money, sympathy, a job. Naomi didn't even look at him. Believe me, she said quietly. If I wanted money, I would have sold this information to them, not you. That shut him up. Adrian thought for a second. Then he made a decision. Come upstairs, he said. Now. The entire lobby seemed to jump. Victor stepped forward. Adrian, you can't be serious. You're going to bring her into a private billion-dollar negotiation? You don't know if she's stable, if she's credible, if she's even. Adrian turned his head. The look he gave Victor could have split concrete. What I know, he said coldly, is that when a woman speaks 5 languages in my lobby, fixes my guests' problems, and accurately identifies the hidden agenda of people I'm about to sign with. He paused. I listened. Victor's face flushed a dangerous crimson. Security, Adrian added calmly. If anyone tries to stop her again, you escort them out. And just like that, the power structure inverted. Not loudly, not theatrically, but definitively. Naomi swallowed hard. She wasn't used to walking into luxury spaces voluntarily. She wasn't used to walking anywhere important without being shoved out first. But as Adrian gestured toward the elevator, she lifted her chin and stepped forward. For the first time in a long time, people parted for her. Not out of fear, not out of disgust. Out of stunned respect they could barely understand. As the elevator doors slid shut behind them, the lobby burst into frantic whispers. Who is she? Did you hear what he called her? 5-tongued ghost? Why is she homeless if she's that important? Is this some test, a stunt? But up in the elevator, silent except for the soft hum of ascent. Naomi leaned her head back against the glass wall and closed her eyes for a second. You sure about this? She whispered. Adrian glanced at her. I'm a billionaire, he said. I've made a career out of being sure about the wrong people. He paused. For once, I'd like to be right about someone the world overlooked. Naomi let out a breath that was half laugh, half exhaustion. Then you should know, she said quietly, that if I do this, if I help you. She swallowed. I'm burning the last bridge I have with them. Adrian nodded slowly. Then let's make sure, he said. It was never a bridge worth keeping. The doors opened onto the top floor, and the real test began. The top floor of the St. Aurelius felt like another planet. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the penthouse conference suite, giving a sweeping view of the city. Silver skyscrapers, rivers of headlights, the horizon glowing gold in the late afternoon sun. A long obsidian table gleamed at the center of the room. Gold-trimmed chairs, crystal water pitchers, bowls of imported fruit no one would touch. And inside that glass palace sat 3 of the most powerful negotiators in the world. The Spanish delegate, Alejandro Ruiz, tapping his pen with theatrical impatience. The Japanese representative, Mr. Sato, polite but unreadable. The Italian CEO, Moretti, leaning back with a smug calm. All of them paused when they saw Naomi enter beside Adrian. Alejandro's eyes flared, recognition, then shock, then something colder. Moretti arched a brow. Who is this? Mr. Sato simply observed, eyes narrowing. Adrian didn't sit. He stood behind Naomi like a shield. "This," he said, "is the woman who just saved you from making a very expensive mistake." Alejandro's lips twitched into a sneer. "Are we entertaining charity cases now? How progressive of you." Naomi didn't look at him. She didn't have to. Her silence alone unsettled him. Adrian gestured toward the contract packet laid out on the table. "Naomi, show us the clause you mentioned." She stepped forward, fingertips brushing the paper lightly. Calm hands, steady breath. The poise of someone who once did this effortlessly. She turned to page 47. "There," she said. Alejandro stiffened. "That is a standard environmental compliance section." "Is it?" she murmured. Without waiting for permission, she slid the contracts toward each of the other negotiators. "Section 12F, she said. Paragraph 7. The phrasing is designed to appear environmental, but the Spanish delegate has used it before to obtain land collateral rights without needing explicit transfer signatures." Mr. Sato leaned in. Moretti squinted. Alejandro sputtered. "That is outrageous. You are accusing me." "I am stating," Naomi said calmly, "that I sat beside you in Almeria 3 years ago when you tried the same tactic. The only reason you failed then is because the translator caught the hidden inflection in the Spanish conditional wording." Her eyes lifted, steady. "And I trained her." The room froze. Alejandro's face slowly drained of color, then flushed dark. "Ridiculous," he snapped. "You cannot prove." "Yes, she can," Mr. Sato murmured, tracing his finger along the lines. "The kanji translation you suggested for us, Alejandro, would have implied unconditional land transfer." Moretti looked at him sharply. "Is that true?" "It is standard phrasing." "No," Naomi said. "It's a trap." She flipped to page 52. "And here, the arbitration clause. If there is a land dispute, arbitration would occur in Madrid under subsidiary company oversight, which you own through one of your shell firms." She tapped the footnote. "Right here. Code 7G." Moretti and Sato both cursed under their breath. Alejandro stood abruptly. "This is unbelievable. You bring a vagrant into the room to make absurd accusations." Adrian spoke at last. "Sit down, Alejandro." Silence snapped tight across the table. Alejandro sank slowly back into his chair. Naomi stepped back, giving them space to read. They skimmed, then reread, then slowed down, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock to horror. Moretti whispered, "Madonna Santa." Mr. Sato muttered in Japanese under his breath, "Korehatsuye da." This is terrible. Naomi waited, not smug, not emotional, just present. The weight of truth did the rest. After several long moments, Moretti lifted his eyes. "How did you see this?" he asked. Naomi shrugged gently. "Because I helped him write an earlier version years ago, and I helped fight it." Alejandro slammed a hand on the table. "You traitor!" "I saved you," she cut in sharply, "from another public scandal. If this deal went through, you'd face international arbitration charges. Again." Moretti and Sato turned to Alejandro in disbelief. "You weren't going to tell us this was embedded?" Moretti demanded. Mr. Sato spoke tersely. "This is dishonorable." Alejandro stammered. "It was an oversight?" "No," Naomi said quietly. "It was a plan." Adrian stepped beside her. "So," he said calmly, "this deal is off." Moretti nodded instantly. "Off." Mr. Sato bowed slightly. "Agreed. We will renegotiate without the Spanish delegate present." Alejandro's jaw dropped. You can't just..." "You tried to steal from us," Moretti snapped. "Of course we can." Mr. Sato added, "You nearly cost us our integrity." Alejandro's face crumbled. This woman, this homeless woman, has no credibility. You believe her over me? Adrian looked at him, expression steady. Yes, he said. I do. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply stepped back, letting justice settle itself. Alejandro glared at her with venom. You did this to ruin me. No, she said softly. You ruined yourself. Victor, who had been standing silently near the elevator since they entered, finally snapped. This is insane. She waltzes in here like some fluently bilingual savior, and you all just believe her. I've been loyal to this hotel for years. Adrian turned his head. Victor, he said, your loyalty ends today. Victor paled. What? You humiliated guests, ignored concerns, tried to throw out the only person who protected us from a multi-million-dollar disaster. Adrian gestured toward the door. Clean out your office. Victor's voice cracked. You're firing me? For her? Because of her, Adrian said. I still have a functioning company. Victor stormed toward the exit, but as he passed Naomi, she didn't move. She didn't taunt. She didn't even look at him. She simply let him walk past like the wind she no longer felt. Once the room cleared, Adrian approached Naomi. He didn't smile, but his voice softened. You saved my entire negotiation, he said. You saved us from signing away $1 billion. Naomi lifted her hands, palms open. It wasn't about money. It was about truth. He studied her for a moment, the sharp mind behind tired eyes, the unshakable dignity inside worn clothes, the brilliance wrapped in humility. Naomi, he said gently, why didn't you accept our recruitment offer years ago? She inhaled sharply, her voice lowered, fragile. My sister died. Adrian's expression darkened with sympathy. She was sick, Naomi continued, eyes glistening. Hospital bills swallowed everything we had. I was working 3 language jobs at once. I was abroad when she passed. I missed the last call she ever made. She swallowed. When I came home, life unraveled. Grief doesn't break loudly. It breaks quietly, slowly. I thought I could keep going. She gave a weak smile. I couldn't. Adrian's heart ached, not out of pity, but out of recognition of someone carrying a weight no resume could ever explain. Naomi, he said softly, you don't deserve the street. You deserve a position, a home, a chance to rebuild your life. She shook her head gently. Why would you hire someone like me? She whispered. Someone who looks like this? Adrian stepped closer. Because, he said, I finally see who you really are. He glanced at the empty conference room. Half the world negotiates in boardrooms, he said. The other half negotiates in survival. Her breath trembled. Come work for me, Adrian said. Head of Global Interpretation and Ethical Contract Review. Full salary, housing, benefits. Naomi froze. The offer hit her like a wave. Sharp, overwhelming, unbelievable. Why would you do that? She whispered. Because, he said, 5 languages didn't save us today. You did. He extended his hand. Naomi stared at it for a long, long moment. Then, with a shaky breath, she placed her hand in his. Her fingers trembled, but her gaze didn't. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. And in that moment, a homeless woman, dismissed, shoved, humiliated, rose higher than the men who stepped on her. The next morning, the St. Aurelius Hotel posted a public press release. A multilingual specialist uncovered fraudulent contract language during an international negotiation. We proudly welcome Naomi Reyes to our executive team. Her face wasn't shown. Her story wasn't sensationalized. Her dignity was protected. But inside the hotel, where wealthy guests once looked through her, She now walked through the lobby with her head high. Clean clothes, a staff badge, a future in her hands. And people moved aside for her, not out of fear, out of respect. Let me leave you with this. Some people judge by what they see. Others judge by what they expect. But the world changes when someone finally stops to ask, who are you really? Because sometimes the person you step over is the person who will save you. And sometimes the person you ignore is the person the world has been waiting to recognize. Naomi Reyes walked into that hotel invisible. She walked out unforgettable.